Welcome into the Draft Geeks podcast. This is officially part 2 of our draft grades. We did the AFC draft grades, so if you have not listened to that, make sure you go listen there. This is the NFC draft grades. We will be going by division, alphabetical order, giving our grades for each team. So hopefully you guys are ready because the Draft Geeks podcast starts right now.
Welcome into another episode of the Draft Geeks podcast. I'm Max Shostak over at the Draft Geek, here with Jace Campbell over at Pat's Drive. Today we are grading and analyzing the NFCs draft hauls. If you haven't listened to the AFC episode, go check that out. If you're just an NFC fan, well, here's your episode. We're diving into all 16 of these teams, going to go through, give them a grade. None of it matters, but it's fun to talk about. In 3 years, that's when we'll really know how these classes did. But it's fun to get our initial impression. Jace, how you doing?
Yeah, I like how you said it doesn't matter because right now we're going off of our big board, off of where, we like fits. But, hey, in 3 years, they could all suck. Knock on wood. Hopefully our teams, they don't, because we like both of our drafts if you guys listen to the AFC episode. But we'll see. So starting in the NFC East.
Yeah, let's do it. So make sure you guys, before we get underway, make sure you guys are subscribed, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Send it to a friend. We're not going away. We'll have a ton of summer content for you guys. But this is our farewell to the 2025 NFL Draft. We'll definitely, keep up with the rookies as the season goes on. As far as draft season content, this is the last of 2025. We're starting it with Dallas in the NFC East. The prime example of why you cannot grade a class after the first night. They take Tyler Booker after Zach Martin's retirement. Kind of a shocking pick to me. Did not love the value, but then they go out and get Donovan Ezraku in the second and Savon Ravel in the third, Jaden Blue in the fifth, and then Johnny Cornelius I really liked in the sixth round. I gave this class a B+. I thought the Cowboys did a very nice job of finding value with premium picks in the second day of the draft. Jaden Blue, I think, could become maybe a starter, but a 1B, maybe the 1A at his high end in a committee. So I thought that was a really good pick. They addressed some developmental tackle. Jay Toya, kind of a nice find in round 7. But I thought this was a B for Dallas. Thought this was going to go in a different direction after the first night, but I think they rebounded pretty well.
Yeah, I gave this one a B+ too, because if you just look at their top 3 players, take out draft picks, which I know we don't do, which is why I don't have it as an A.
Good
but
players.
A haul of Donovan Ezraku, Tyler Booker, Savon Ravel is very good. And I was super high on Ravel. I had him at 17 on my big board. The injury is what dropped him, which is totally fine. I get that. I said he wasn't going to be drafted like I had him ranked on my big board, but this is an elite level athlete that can come in and contribute immediately if he's healthy. Ezraku is going to give him an edge presence, who had 16.5 sacks, who's great. And then Tyler Booker is going to be a physical downhill presence that's going to try to finish guys and kind of take over that Zach Martin role. So although it's high for both of us, I had him at 36. I believe you had him a little bit lower on our top
51.
Our top 100 big board. Kind of get why they wanted to, but I thought that they would look at maybe a different position there and look at potentially taking Tyler Booker at 44. But again, that's why I say, hey, if you were to say Ezraku at 12, Booker at 44, Ravel at 76, you're like, okay, it's fine. So give him there. I agree. Jaden Blue, they needed a running back. Everyone was like, if Genty falls, they would be there. They could have taken someone else in the second, but they get a guy that stays in Texas there. And then I agree. Cornelius and Toya right there are 2 developmental offensive and defensive linemen that have a chance to develop into something, get in a rotation, potentially start in year 2 or 3 down the road. So really like those late round finds for them. So B+ for me. Can't give it in the A's just because the Tyler Booker pick was a little bit of a reach. Even though I understand it, he's
going to start and he's going to be pretty good. I like the system fit. It's just not not the player I would have taken in that spot, and a reach by a large margin compared to my board.
I agree. So the Giants would be next for us. Obviously they made I would say the big trade on day 1, but they really didn't, because they got
upstaged.
That was the Jaguars. But man, they get a blue chip prospect at pick 3, Abdul Carter, which is going to make a fun defensive line for them. They are aggressive. So I'm giving the Giants an A on this class.
Okay.
I think that the aggressiveness I have to salute. I have to salute the aggressiveness. This regime, head coach, GM knows that they're on the hot seat. But I think that Jackson Dart maybe saves them a little time because they have two quarterbacks on 1-year deals, and they can say, hey, look, we are aggressive. We went up. We got Jackson Dart. He's the guy that's starting maybe at the back half of this year, maybe next year, maybe buys them a little time. I'm not saying it saves them a job, but maybe they could convince them as, hey, this is our plan. But man, I love what they did in the middle rounds. Obviously, Abdul Carter's great. But Darius Alexander at 65, Scattaboo at 105, and Marcus Mbo at 154. Man, that is 3 great players for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds there. Guys that will start to, in my opinion, or be heavily in the rotation. Scattaboo is going to be used in so many different ways next to Tyrone Tracy. Marcus Mbo can be a guard, but ideally a center at one point. They already said they're going to move Evan Neal into guard. So that would be a fun interior offensive line with him and Evan Neal. So I really think what made this class for me is what they did in the middle rounds. Yeah, they traded up. They lost a 2nd round pick. But they were able to still make way with Alexander Scattaboo and Mbo at in the 4th, 5th, and 6th, or sorry, 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
I give this class an A-. Taxed it a little bit just because, Jackson Dart is a pretty considerable reach on my board. But listen, you got to pay the quarterback tax. Yeah. This guy was my QB2 as well. And like you mentioned, it's a lifeline. They're not going to, or the ownership group's not going to hesitate to fire them over a 2nd-round quarterback. A 1st-round quarterback who was taken in a really good overall draft class, maybe you're talking about something there. So this is a future lifeline for them. I think Dable also really liked Jackson Dart. I'd be willing to bet he was either their QB2 or QB1. I think they showed that by moving up. And I really like the pick just because, like you said, they got aggressive. So it shows that they really like him. They've been left at the altar at quarterback for quite some time now. They went up and got their guy. They also got Abdul Carter, unbelievable player. And then, yeah, man, that 3-pick run of Alexander, Scattaboo, and Bo. And then I want to shout out Thomas Fidone in round 7, just because it was, a player that's been riddled by injuries, but came in to Nebraska as the number 1 tight end in his high school class and just hasn't really been able to develop. But the Giants are weak at tight end. So I think that this could be a sneaky rotational player, potential starter in his 2nd year. So Thomas Fidone was a nice cherry on top to what was a very good draft by Joe Shane and ultimately a very good offseason. I would give this higher than an A- for his offseason. Javon Holland, Paulson Adebo, couple others. This really impressive work. Giants fans should be elated with how their front office handled this offseason. Then what do we got? Philly?
Howie Roseman, man. He does it every year.
Again.
They did it again.
I gave this another A- for me. Jahad Campbell in the 1st round, 6th player on my board. Andrew Makuba in the 2nd round. I think I had him at like 71. That's a perfect fit as well. And then they were able on day 3 to just take guys that were good fits. Ty Robinson's in a spot where he can pin his ears back. Mac McWilliams had I think kind of an underwhelming Senior Bowl. And then Smell Mondon, Tracy player, Kyle McCord, very fun. They might be able to move Tanner McKee and replace Tanner McKee with Tanner McKee. Miles Hinton, and Cameron Williams. One of them will hit. But specifically, I want to talk a little bit about this Cameron Williams pick. At 207, I think this guy was a 1st-round pick if he came back to Texas.
In 2026.
In 2026, yes. Let me make that super abundantly clear. It is for 2026, not 2025. This guy's got all the traits in the world. Yeah. He chose to come out, and I think, when you dangle the dreams that you've worked for so long in front of a lot of guys, it's tempting not to take it. But Cameron Williams was 81st on my big board, and they got him at 207. I think the Eagles are going to be able to develop the heck out of this guy. I think this could be, I don't want to go as far as to say it's like Lane Johnson's replacement when he's on the way out, but I am all aboard the Cameron Williams developmental train, especially because we've talked so much about guys like Kingsley Sumatia and Kieran Amagaji to the Chiefs and Bears, guys that shouldn't have been on the field in their 1st year. Cameron Williams will not have to play. He will be able to develop, get those practice snaps. You'll be able to, integrate him a little bit into the rotation in his second year, maybe back half of this year. And then I think by year 3, this guy could be a full go, and I think he could be something special. So really like the Eagles draft. It's an A- for me because I just thought they could have done a little more in terms of having their picks at the top of the 4th round. No third round pick dings it a little bit. But man, a lot of good dart throws and Jahad Campbell.
Yeah, I mean, I gave them an A. They were trying to trade up to 23, 24-ish range to get Jahad Campbell. He falls to 31 because of the shoulder surgery after the combine. That's a top 10 player for both of us. 9 on my big board. I know he's up there for you
6.
too. Yeah, and so, Howie Roseman did it again. Him and the Ravens, they always seem to do it. So Andrew Makuba is going to be really fun in that defense. He's going to be able to fly around. Ty Robinson's going to fit very nicely next to Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. Yeah, I was like drawing a blank. Smell Mondin too, I think, is a very fun athletic linebacker too. So now you have Jahad Campbell, him. They still have Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean. Pretty fun linebacker core there. And then I want to hit on Cameron Williams too. Like, I think that is a pick for them that they're jumping with joy. If he goes back to college, which me and you both agree he should have, especially with NIL now, he's going to be making way more money if he would have stayed. But okay, now they get him in their system. And they get to develop him for a year, possibly 2. And he doesn't have to have all this pressure of starting because they have Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata. That is going to be a very good pick for them in the near future, in my opinion. And I know you agree with that. I remember texting you at maybe pick 203. And I'm like,
yeah,
Cameron Williams should have went to college, should have stayed in college, right? And we said that even when we were saying he could have been a 2nd or 3rd round tackle.
I wanted the Ravens to take him when they took Emory Jones. I was like, give me Cameron Williams. And he goes
as a developmental guy, why wouldn't you? Yeah, I had him at 68 on my big board. He falls to 207. Wow. That's tremendous value for them there, and they have an opportunity to do something very special with him. And like you said, be a potential Lane Johnson replacement whenever that is down the road. So traits wise, all that stuff, NFL system. Yeah.
Steal
if you had to go
draft, by the way, for me, compared to value, compared to where,
come on, bro.
No, compared to where he was drafted. Like if you take the draft slot minus where I had him on my big board, Cameron Williams was the steal of the draft.
It was a very good spot for him. And I was like, once we got to 200, I'm like, who's going to take him? Blah, blah, blah. And they actually went like 3 picks later than when I texted you. So that was actually really funny. But yeah, the Washington Commanders, sorry, I'm trying to pull up their draft class because I'm jumping in between. I gave the Washington Commanders a B-. Josh Connerly. Now, again, they didn't have a lot of picks, so this is a little bit tougher, but I really like their first 2. Josh Connerly to protect Jaden Daniels and Trey Amos at 61. If you guys listened to the AFC episode, I thought Amos should have went to Buffalo at pick, what was that, 30?
30.
But he goes 61 to the Commanders. Big, long press man corner that I think is a little bit better than like a Maxwell Harrison or some of those guys. Super polished, played a lot of football. Jalen Lane in the 4th, not a bad option there. And then I think Jacory Krosky-Marriott out of Arizona, he has a chance to be a rotational guy with B-Rob because of the health concerns that he's had the last couple of years. Austin Eckler getting a little bit old. I think that he has a opportunity to be a good asset for them also, and they got him with their 7th round pick. So only 5 picks in this class, but I gave them, what did I say, B-? Yeah, B- when I pulled up. B- is what I gave the Commanders.
I have a B- as well. The little write-up I did in my draft grades post, I said, I like this. I said, not addressing the defensive line hurts, but I think I like this about as much as you could like a 5-man draft class. Josh Connerly in the 1st round. He was my tackle 4. Got him as the 4th tackle off the board. Really like that. He's a fast tackle, fleet-footed guy that can move with a Jaden Daniels. I think that's very important when you have a mobile quarterback like that. Got to be able to move with it. Trey Amos, huge steal. Jalen Lane gives you nice special teams value. I did not watch their 6th-round pick, so I won't speak on that. And then Jacory Krosky-Marriott got hosed by the NCAA this year. Transferred from New Mexico to Arizona. Played 1 game and they were like, we messed up your eligibility. You can't play. And he was like, what? Okay. So he missed the whole season.
Good. He was good at New Mexico too.
Yeah, he was.
Like his 2023 film at New Mexico was good.
This could be awesome value. Jacory Krosky-Marriott. If I'm to give you 2 names, we'll talk about one in the NFC North when we get there. But at the running back position, Jacory Krosky-Marriott is one of 2 7th-round running backs that I think could return some serious return on investment for Washington.
The other hard thing I want to say about Washington that we're not taking into account, and we're not going to, but what they traded a 3rd round pick for Marshawn Lattimore, and what they trade for Laramie Tunsil?
Oh, I mean, Laramie Tunsil.
Yeah,
They traded capital. I don't know what.
Yeah, and again, that's why their draft is a little bit smaller, is because they traded for guys because they were going for it, right? And this year they're going for it. They were like, hey, we need a tackle. We need to protect Jaden Daniels. Let's go get Laramie Tunsil. They needed a corner. They traded capital and got Marshawn Lattimore. So that's why their class is a little bit small. If we were to add that in, it would be higher than a B- for me, because they got great quality players that are going to have more of an impact this year and probably next year than what they would have for the picks that they gave up. So that's another caveat for this draft, but we're not counting that in there.
So we'll go to the NFC North here. Chicago Bears. They weaponized this offense with Colston Loveland and Luther Burden. Like what they did there, I think Loveland complements Kmet very well. Luther Burden, just too good to pass up, I guess, at 39. Trapillo was high for me at 56. They needed O-line, but I was like, don't love that fit either. So we'll see how that one works out. Shamar Turner, like the fit there. I think they had some reaches mixed in. But then Kyle Monungai, the gem of this class for me, him and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt are the two guys I was referring to. 233. They didn't touch running back as early as they thought, but I think Kyle Monungai can play the David Montgomery role in a Ben Johnson offense. So this was a B for me. I like what the Bears did. Got some weapons, had some reaches, but ultimately a very solid class. Good draft for Ryan Poles.
Yeah, I like this as a B also. And a couple reasons. I think the Colston Loveland fit is really good for them. I mean, we talked about the fit with Tyler Warren for Indianapolis. I think Colston Loveland fits what Ben Johnson wants to do with a tight end. So I love that fit. Luther Burden, once a top 15 pick in, pre-mocks and stuff, maybe for a little bit of a down year at Missouri and stuff. Great with the ball in his hands. Going to be very creative with him is Ben Johnson. For the two, they had 3 second-round picks. I like Ozzie Trapillo, and they needed a right tackle. They needed some competition there. I didn't love that there. I didn't love Shamar Turner at 62. I thought they could have gotten a little bit better value for those guys, so that brings it down a little. But yeah, with what Ben Johnson did in Detroit with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, he's going to have very similar with Moyongai and DeAndre Swift. He's going to be able to create a two-headed monster. Not to the extent of what he had in Detroit, but still,
Nick Chubb, I think, is going to be a Bear, by the way.
You think so? Interesting. Yeah. That'll be that. So I guess we'll find out about that and see. But yeah, he's going to have 2 options that he can go to, and 2 different options. Their running style is different, and so gave it a B. I think with 3, I mean, heck, they had 4 picks in the top 62, and I like 2 of them. I think that they fit good. Ozzie Trapillo, I get they needed a little bit of a tackle to compete, but at 56, maybe a little high, and Shamar Turner maybe a little bit high too. I mean, so it would have been interesting to see there. I wonder if Mike Green would have fallen past 57 if he would have been the Bears at 52, but they also could have just taken him at 56. So,
yeah, they had their shot with him. I was kind of waiting for edge rusher, but
yeah. So don't really love the other 2 second-round picks other than Burden. So that's why I give them a B.
Sliding over to the Lions, I gave them a C+. For me, and the face you just made, I wonder if this was your lowest graded class. We'll see. The Lions got my guy at 28, Tyleik Williams. I was shocked, though, that he went in the first round. But it's kind of what they needed. As they kept drafting, I was waiting for the edge rusher opposite Aiden Hutchinson. I'm like, where is it? And they ended up with Ahmed Hassanin in the 6th round. That's not it. He's a good player, but they got him where he should go, if that makes sense. I'm waiting. I was waiting for that star edge rusher that can make a true impact behind Aiden Hutchinson. Tate Ratledge is a super Dan Campbell guard. They got their guys, identity draft. They got very Lions players. Isaac Tesla is another very Lions player, but at 70 is crazy for me. He's like a blocking slot receiver. I think they're going to use him on the outside if they're using this kind of value on him, but at 70, I liked his teammate Andrew Armstrong better. Andrew Armstrong went undrafted, so that's kind of
what
where
do
that
you
is.
know? What do
Yeah,
you know?
what do I know? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then they doubled up on Georgia Bulldogs in the 7th round, which I like both of those players, Dan Jackson and Dominic Lovett. Kind of fun 7th round picks that I think could stick on the back of this roster. But this was a C plus. I was looking for more difference makers. I think they still need difference makers, specifically at the edge rush position and perhaps a corner. And they didn't check either of those boxes.
Yeah, no, it's a C plus for me. This is not my D plus draft. This is my C plus. Tyleik Williams may be a little high. I don't blame them because they have Aiden Hutchinson on the outside. I think that he can complement Aiden Hutchinson on the interior. You've seen the last couple years what an interior defensive line with a great pass rush can do. So I think that that's kind of what they wanted to. And it's a very Lions type pick, right? Like they're going to take their guy, their mold for their guy.
Yeah.
Ratledge, I like as a guard. They built this team from the offensive line out, and I think that sticks with Tate Ratledge there. I agree with you. Other than that, Tesla, Frazier, Hassanin, Jackson, and Lovett. Like Jackson, Lovett, and Hassanin, I even like more than I like Frazier and Tesla. Like I didn't like the 3rd and 5th round picks that they had there. They also had a gap of 100 picks. They selected Tesla at 70. They didn't select again
because they traded up for him.
Yes. And so that's another reason where it's like, okay, you traded up for Tesla. Interesting. But their GM said that he was their favorite receiver in the class. So what do we know? What do we know? Did you heard that press conference?
No, and I wish I didn't.
He literally said this was the best player in the class. So
all right, we'll see how that goes.
Moving on from that comment from the Lions to what it would be the Green Bay Packers, right?
Yeah, Green Bay.
Okay, the Packers. Come on, computer, load. I have the Packers currently at a C. I don't know if this is okay. I was gonna say I don't hope this is being a hater. Matthew Golden in the first is fun, and man, talk about an electric moment when they took him in Green Bay, first time taking a receiver.
Yeah,
I like Matthew Golden. I don't love him. I know a lot of people love him. For me, I think this is the range that I could have seen him started at. I have him at 33 on my big board. Just because of the lack of production and stuff, I think he'll be good in that offense that has so many other receivers around him. That will be a good fit for him. I didn't like Anthony Belton. Savion Williams, I did not like there too, taking another receiver. I mean, like for me, they have a guy like Savion Williams and Jaden Reed who you want to scheme up touches for. And Savion Williams might be a little bit different, but not a great route runner. So I gave this one a C. I would say other than Matthew Golden, I just didn't love anything that they did. Baron Sorrell from Texas, Colin Oliver. For me, it was kind of a blah draft outside of the excitement of Matthew Golden.
Man, lockstep. I loved the Matthew Golden pick just because I think he can be their wide receiver 1. I think they have a lot of just middling talent. Jaden Reed doesn't profile as a 1. I think Golden can be that for them. He fits what Jordan Love wants to do. 19th on my big board, so I like it a little more than you, but it's still a C for me. Just because I thought Belton was a big reach. Savion Williams is like an unnecessary double dip, and I don't know how they're going to use him, quite frankly. And so Savion Williams, just you guys will see the fun and the pain with Savion Williams comes and goes. I didn't think they needed a double dip at receiver. Further crowds the room. I liked Baron Sorrell, so that was a nice pick. But no, man, I don't think the Packers got much value in this draft. Unnecessarily double dipped at receiver. And then we talked all draft season about the uncertainty of Jair Alexander, and they drafted Micah Robinson at 237. That doesn't do the job. Like they needed corner. They didn't get corner. They double dipped at receiver. They needed a big time receiver. They got one, in my opinion, and then they crowded the room. And I'm like, what are we doing? I'm just a little confused about the direction of this Packers draft. So it's a C for me until I see it otherwise. Luckily for them, I think this draft will be judged on Matthew Golden's success.
Yep.
So if they get a good player there, we can forget about the rest. All right, Jace, here's my D+.
Here's my D+ too.
All right, Minnesota Vikings. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 picks. This is not necessarily the Donovan Jackson fan club, this podcast right here. I didn't really like Donovan Jackson. They took him at 24. And he was, hold on, I'm going to have to scroll a couple times because I got to find him on my big board.
He's way down there in the 200s, huh?
No. But Donovan Jackson was 82nd on my big board. They got him at 24th. He's a guard. He's going to start. I just, wasn't the biggest fan of his game. And I think that if you have 5 picks, to make a pick at 24, they came into the draft with 5 picks.
Yeah.
To make a pick at 24 and have it not be Malachi Starks, they had to get out of there. And then, listen, this is where I ding them even more. Pick 25 got traded for a haul. The Texans moved out.
We heard
Pick
that
26.
the Eagles wanted to trade up too.
Pick 26 got a first-round pick next year to move out.
Yep.
The Vikings stuck and picked a guard at 24.
Yep.
This would be better if they moved out, collected a first-round pick, drafted Tate Ratledge in the second round. They would have been able to pick before the Lions. This draft was a mess, in my opinion. And then we'll move off the Donovan Jackson pick. Round 3, they took Ty Felton, a receiver that I don't really like, at 102. And the Vikings took a dang receiver. Like, they don't need a receiver. So this wasn't a good draft, in my opinion. I didn't like a single pick. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins in the 5th round is a developmental player, but I didn't really like him. Kobe King is fine value at 201.
I like Kobe King.
Yeah, I like that one. But this I don't want to come off too harsh, but this is the type of draft that you point to in 2 years where you're like, how'd the Vikings get so mid so fast? They were supposed to be good when JJ came in. And this is the type of draft you point to. So the Vikings, not a fan of this one. This was a D+ for me and far and away the lowest graded draft class I have.
Yeah, Donovan Jackson was at 70th for me on my big board. And we talked about it every time we did mock drafts. Is like, Minnesota could be a trade. They should be a trade down spot. If they would have taken Malachi Starks, I could have seen it, right? That's a talent that falls. I get it. You don't want to trade out of that. But to stick at 24, to not trade down and say, okay, let's get pick 30 something and then maybe, pick 70 in a future first or whatever. And then maybe if Donovan Jackson's there, you can take him. That's fine. But to stick and pick him at pick 24 with only 4 more picks after that, I did not like that either. Ty Felton, why do they need a receiver there if they were going to go on? I like Jalen Royals that was on the board. I
like Jalen Naylor, who's on their team.
So, I mean, I like some other people I didn't like it. Kobe King at 201 was fine. I mean, for a linebacker in the 6th round, it's about as good as you can get. But not trading out of pick 24 when the next 2 were traded was definitely an interesting option because they got calls. I can confidently say they got calls.
If 25 and 26 got traded, I guarantee you they called the team with 5 picks.
And I'm pretty sure that the Eagles said they were trying to trade up to 23 and 24 before they were like, okay, we might have to stick and wait this out because they didn't get 25, they didn't get 26. So there's no way that they didn't get an opportunity. And then let's say Minnesota, you can move up down to 31 and then whatever else you get from the Eagles. Okay. Yeah. Now you have an extra pick
or do what we did in our final mock and move down twice.
Yes.
We moved him down 2 times.
Especially if it's for checks. Where would Donovan Jackson have legitimately gone if he didn't go here?
I think the NFL was higher, but I would say 40, like low 40s, mid 40s. But I think that this sounds so like anti Donovan Jackson, but I think it would have been a blessing in disguise if they traded to 48, let somebody else take him, and then take Tate Ratledge, who I think is a better player at guard. Still a reach, but we're pinching hairs a little bit. But man, I think they swung hard and missed. They got Tyler Batty, Silas Bolden, Max Brosmer after the draft, Logan Brown as well. So if they drafted some of the guys they got after the draft, maybe I'd think about it in a higher regard. So some decent UDFAs for them. We'll shout out something positive for Minnesota here. But this draft has potential to be a setback, in my opinion.
And I'm just going to say it. I'm not going to get ahead of myself, so Vikings fans can kill me.
Get ahead of yourself.
I'm not a fan of JJ McCarthy. So he's got to prove to me that he can be it because I think he's a good quarterback, but I did not like him at the pick they took him last year. So let's move on before I get crucified, though. The Falcons for
last year's lowest graded draft class.
Was it really yours?
For me, because the Penix move up and then row and thought they were better this year.
Okay, so the Falcons, I'm giving them a B-. Now, the aggression I love. They take Jalen Walker, who we talked about on day one, on our, after that, after the draft, we did a show. he's kind of a hybrid. He's going to give you edge rushing ability. He's going to give you linebacker ability. They needed both. The story of this draft is going to be James Pierce because of the expensive, what they gave to get up. They gave up a future first to get up to 26. James Pierce Jr. has all the talent in the world, but he has the off the field issues, things like that. Xavier Watson, the third, was a heck of a pick. But then they turn around and take Billy Bowman, who I like Billy Bowman, but so now you have Xavier Watson, Billy Bowman, and then Jack Nelson has a developmental offensive tackle. Big guy that's played a ton of snaps at Wisconsin. So I like this class more. Obviously, the trade up was very expensive, and that's what's going to be dependent on. But they also were one of the worst teams in getting pressure on the quarterback last year. They needed to take a swing. They got two guys who have all the upside in the world as a pass rushing standpoint, and one of them that can play off ball backer, drop, and do some things like that. And they got a guy who we were very high on in the second, and that was Xavier Watts. So I actually like the haul for them. So
yeah. Good haul. It was a B- for me as well. Xavier Watts was a steal at 96. Billy Bowman was positive value. Slightly confused about the double dip, but I like the player, so I'm fine with it there. And then Jack Nelson, like you talked about. Jalen Walker and James Pierce, man, this was what they needed. I also am a little lower on the class just because they didn't do anything to help Michael Penix Jr. No receivers. I'm not all aboard this whole like Darnell Mooney is totally fine at wide receiver 2 train. Thought they could have added somebody there. Their tight end position.
Kyle Pitts is going to break out.
Good.
He's going to break out. Come on,
Kyle
every
Pitts
year.
Breakout. It's
every year
coming. But like, they have a decent offensive line, and Jack Nelson is kind of what I was looking for them to add, and like a developmental guy behind there. But no receivers was a little shocking to me. I thought they maybe would have invested a higher pick in O-line, but when you only have 5 picks, there's only so much you can do. And so they gave up a lot to go get James Pierce. That's what this draft will be. That's what this class's legacy is. Unless Jalen Walker, he's kind of the handicap there. If James Pierce isn't great, but Jalen Walker's great, we'll be fine with it. We'll just remember they gave up a pick.
What's the bigger story with the Falcons? The trade up for James Pierce Jr. or Jeff Ulbricht's son prank calling shooter?
Oh my God, it's Jeff Ulbricht's son. My kid would not go back to Oxford, Mississippi, if I was Jeff Ulbricht. That $100,000 fine is your college fund.
There you go. Yep, you just lost your degree. Your degree. So, I mean, that was but there was a ton of prank calls throughout the whole thing. There's a ton of them coming out. Like Mason Graham got prank called. Other people got prank called. So
Cooper DeJean last year, Tyler Warren, Isaiah Bond. Oof, the Isaiah Bond.
I saw something that was interesting. I
know what you're going to say.
That they should announce the pick first and then call them, which I kind of agree, man. If you're just sitting there and it just like us, like we're sitting there watching
Judkins would have never known he was picked.
You're right. He would have came back. He would have been like, dang, I'm still not up. But
he would have done the, what's the me? Like, me? I got picked?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the picture of the guy. Yeah. But I think that's a good way to solve it. I don't know if they'll ever go to it with with how much media coverage there is and stuff. But if there was a way to not spoil it and just let the players, hey, you're going to get drafted. You're going to get a raw reaction, see it on TV. And then you're going to get a call from us, probably a pick or two later. Or, maybe even 5 minutes later. But
you get some fun reactions, man. Some guy grew up a Jets fan, gets drafted by the Bills, and he's like, dang it. That's on TV.
So I think it could solve a lot. I don't know if they'll ever go to it, but I kind of like that idea. But so Carolina.
I'm
going to like this class.
Yeah, you start us off, but I liked it as well. But I think
I gave him an A-. I gave him an A- for a couple reasons. Number one, I stood on business, and I love Tetero McMillan. He ended up at 5 for me. He was my guy. They take him at 8. This is a mock that I've done a couple times too. Is I was like, hey, Bryce Young showed something at the back half of last year. Get him a number 1. Tetero McMillan is at number 1. I didn't believe in Xavier Legette. I didn't believe in some of those guys on the roster. Get him, Tetero McMillan. Then in the second, when they needed defense, they get 2 guys in the second and third who I believe can have starter potential. Nick Scorton, very good out of Texas A&M, needs to stay at the weight he played at Purdue, though, to stay productive, in my opinion. And then Princely Ramonley Mellon, who has great upside as a pass rusher, maybe more of a pass rusher specific right now in the NFL. But another guy that I loved, I was really high on him. I had him at 54 on my big board. So getting him there, I love there. And then if you go down, like Trevor Etienne's going to be a solid running back for them. I know they kind of have a crowded backfield with Chuba Hubbard, and they signed Rico Dowdle. Plus, they took Jonathan Brooks, who has the ACLs. We'll see there. Excuse me. Ransom out of Ohio State, the safety there. Also, Mitchell Evans, a tight end, and then Jimmy Horn. Like, I thought this was a very good class, and it started with the top 3 picks who, okay, yeah, they passed on one of those elite pass rushers at 8 because they needed help with the defense, but they got a guy who I mocked to them so many times, and I love the fit there for Tedero McMillan. Instant number 1, instant help for who was it, Dave Canales and Bryce Young on that offensive side of the ball.
So you're much higher on me than McMillan and Umamielen. So I gave this class a B. I still like it. I'm not as high on it as everybody else, but I do really like the group. Tet McMillan's instant help. Nick Scorton is what makes this class for me. I love Nick Scorton. And I think the Panthers could have found themselves a franchise edge rusher in the second round. He was number 27 on my big board. They got him at 51. And then, later down in the class, I actually thought ETN was a little bit of a reach. I was kind of shocked that they took a running back in the 4th. Yeah. But I like the Lathan Ransom pick. Really like the Mitchell Evans pick. I think that's somebody that could become a starter. I don't love Jatavion Sanders. We'll see what happens there. I think they could also kind of platoon depending on the roles that the offense is looking for, snap by snap basis. And then Jimmy Horn Jr. is a fun one, adding a lot of speed in the 6th round. We'll see what happens there. Not Joe Horn's kid. That's JC Horn. And they're not related. But Carolina Panthers, a B for me. Very solid draft class. Another step in the right direction. Thought they could have gone defense in the 1st. Hope that the Jalen Walker pass and him going in the division doesn't come back to haunt them. But I can appreciate them going to help out their young quarterback. That's just a fun storyline to watch, though, is Jalen Walker when he gets the chance to say, you should have picked me. But we'll see what happens. The New Orleans Saints. I found myself a smidge higher on some people on this class. I gave it a B-. I'm seeing them get killed out here. And I'm wondering if you're a little lower. I like the Kelvin Banks pick. He was my number 2 offensive tackle. So I thought they got decent value with him at 9. I mean, Shuck at 40 is Shuck at 40. If they believe in him to win, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Derek Carr's future certainly up in the air. And they can't just go into next year with just Spencer Rattler. So They're going to have a decision to make with Shuck, Rattler. We'll see what Carr's health is. They're set up to potentially pick number 1 overall next year, though. I'll say that. Vernon Broughton, I thought was early. I like the Jonas Sanker pick. Like the Stutzman pick a decent amount. Maybe a little early. Quincy Riley was a solid pick, though. And then Devin Neal at 184 is when I just got up and clapped. I was like, there you go. We're done with the Kendre Miller. He's going to, deep sleeper fantasy, Kendre Miller. No, it's Devin Neal, man. I think Devin Neal is going to make this offense fun, even if they're not winning a lot of games. I think they're going to stay competitive. Moliki Madavao was a developmental tight end that I liked. And then Fadil Diggs, wrap it up. I think that was another solid pick. In the 7th round, I was kind of nervous a team was going to take Fadil Diggs a little bit too high. But in the 7th round, I think you get good value on a guy like that. So, man, I just think people see Shuck at 40 and they just want to kill the Saints. And then Vernon Broughton at 71 doesn't help a ton. But I think this is a fine class overall. It's a B-. Shuck is in the hundreds on my board. So, tremendous reach. 4th round grade on the guy. But started off with Banks. I think this is a fine group.
I gave it a C. I'm one of those. Right. I don't hate the Kelvin Banks pick. They took Fuwanga last year, who was a tackle, projected better as a guard. Same thing here. So a little bit questionable there, but they need offensive line help. Not saying they don't.
Banks can play tackle.
Banks, yeah, he can play tackle, but I'm just, maybe he's a better guard. That's the Will Campbell debate.
Yes,
Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
No. We both agree on that.
I'm down on Tyler Shuck just because at 40, man, at 20, what is he? Almost 26 years old.
Yeah, he's gonna be 26 years old.
I have a hard time with that. If you tell me they get him,
is he older than Spencer Rattler?
Probably.
Oh man,
probably. And he's really, in my opinion, only had one decent year of tape at Louisville.
Better prospect coming out. Tyler Shuck or Spencer Rattler. They got one in the 40, 140 overall, one in the 5th round. I liked Rattler better coming out.
I was gonna say I don't know if I think both of them are comparable. I don't know if I would put one Head and Hills over the other. So
I mean, I had a late third on Rattler, and I had a early fourth, I think, on Shuck.
yeah.
But
So yeah, it's tough there. Jonas Sanker, I really like. I like Danny Stutzman too. Tackling machine, going to be great for them in that defense. And then like you hit the nail on the head. Devin Neal is going to be that running back too. Hopefully take over for Alvin Kamara one day when his time is up. He has dealt with injuries the last couple of years, but really, other than Kelvin Banks and Devin Neal, everything else was just below average, unless it was Jonas Sanker, Danny Stutzman, and I would say even those ones were average. So not a huge fan of this class. Tyler Shook kind of highlights it for me because anytime you take a quarterback that high, you're going to have high expectations for them. And I don't know if Shook can live up to them. So
corner and edge. I wanted to see them take corner and edge, and they didn't really do that. So the Saints, I think this is the Saints and the Dolphins, maybe some of the worst roster construction in the NFL. There's some bad teams that have like some direction. Those two are kind of like the bad teams where I don't see a direction. The Dolphins at least have a quarterback. The Saints, not so much. So we'll see what happens there. They're set up to pick top 5 next year, but they still got some good football players. They're full roster makeover in process, long overdue.
For sure.
Tampa Bay. This is a funky class for me. So when I did my draft grades on my Instagram, I did a steal, a reach, and an instant impact pick for every team. This was the only team, and I like this class. I gave it a B before I say any more. I gave it a B. I had a hard time finding my instant impact pick because their first round pick was Emeka Egbuka, and he's going to be not buried, but there's Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan. So they got some depth at receiver, but that's a very good football player. I went instant impact with Benjamin Morrison. I think they're going to get him on the field right away at 53. Wasn't the highest on Morrison. Like this fit, especially because they added Jacob Parrish right after him. Think they did a nice secondary overhaul. I like David Walker on the 4th. I like Elijah Roberts in the 5th, and I like Tez Johnson in the 7th round. They didn't, get linebacker like I thought they would. And, there's not like a slam dunk pick in this class. And, the slam dunk player would be Egbuka on another team, but they're very deep at receiver. But this is a very solid class again for the Bucs, who are continuously establishing an identity of just drafting solid football players and continuously keeping themselves a threat in the NFC.
Yeah, I'm a little bit shocked at the Emeka Egbuka pick still. Like he's
this
a
guy's
good
still shaking
player.
up. Jace hasn't moved since the Bucs took Egbuka at night.
I haven't. I gave the Bucs a B, very similar to you. Egbuka is worth this pick, no doubt about it. Like 19th overall, but man, they just signed Godwin to an extension. Jalen McMillan broke out last year. Mike Evans, I guess they're saying that they don't have confidence in them probably past the next 2 years. But then if they didn't have that, or if Godwin's knees as bad as what this might indicate that it is, why would they have signed Godwin to a 3-year deal for 20+ million? It's just it seems weird, does it not? And I'm not saying Emeka Egbuka will take over for Godwin and maybe take over his role, no doubt about it. It's just like, if that was your plan all along, and maybe it wasn't, we don't know what their plan was, but I don't know why they would have done that. So I like Benjamin Morrison. I like Jacob Parrish. They needed defensive guys there. I had both of those guys as day 2 round grades. Those are my only 2. I mean, I had a couple guys that were top 50 picks, but I had a couple day 2 picks, and they both fit in that category. I like that too. David Walker, FCS guy that's going to be able to crack the 53-man and potentially be an rotational guy, a little bit undersized, but a guy that's been super productive at the FCS level. And then, as much as I want to crap on the Egbuka pick, now you just take Tez Johnson again. Like I was not, I don't know. Don't even get me started on it.
I think Tez Johnson might have just been BPA.
They're just like, let's just take this guy. But I gave him a B because I like Emeka Egbuka. I like Morrison. I like Jacob Parrish. I think those are 3 good players. The fit for me with Egbuka and what they did this offseason was like, whoa, I did not see that one coming.
Yeah. So we'll go to the Arizona Cardinals in the NFC West, our last division here. I gave the Cardinals a B+. They came out of the gates red hot with Walter Nolan and Will Johnson, my 16th and 5th overall players. I can't believe Will Johnson fell this far. I really don't Is it bad to say I don't care how bad the medicals are? Like he's gonna
Not this
recover.
far. Not this far.
This is too far for me.
I think it's the same with
Unless there's
Mike
something
Green.
crazy. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Mike Green doesn't have open it's not like Isaiah Bond right now. Those are two very different things. And then they got Jordan Birch in the third. The rest of this class is fine. I think taking a swing on Denzel Burke in the fifth is nice. Cody Simon in the fourth. Get some national championship pedigree, smart player. They avoided reaching. I wish they went with an offensive lineman at a premium spot. They didn't. But I think that might have been the plan for them in round two. But when Will Johnson is there, you take him. So they did a good job making the most of their premium selections. This was a B+ for me.
Yeah, I gave the Cardinals an A-.
Nice.
It's kind of the same thing as like that haul that they got for the top two guys when you're talking about Walter Nolan and Will Johnson. Those are two guys that, in my opinion, would have been in consideration at 16. And if you would have told me Will Johnson was still there at 16, I would have said you're crazy. So to get him at 47, it was a great haul for them. Walter Nolan at 16, Will Johnson at 47. Jordan Birch, like him, as more of a pass rush specific guy. Cody Simon, Denzel Burke. Everything else of those picks right there, like nothing jumps off the screen. No. It's just like, hey, that's solid draft. They got a couple of position of needs, but what really brings it up is Will Johnson, who was my 6th prospect getting drafted at 47, and Walter Nolan being their first round pick at 16. Even though I was a little bit lower on him, had him at 32. I said he would be a first round pick, and it was just
I had him at 16. So stand down, Jace.
There you go. There you go. So I said there would be 4 interior defensive linemen taken. I was wrong. There was 5.
Wrong. 5.
But I knew that,
technically you were right. That's like the how many months have 28 days question. Not February, all of them.
Yes.
You said there would be 4. There were 4.
There were 4. You're right. So it was just kind of a, hey, the Cardinals wanted Nolan more. I liked Harmon more, but that doesn't mean that they're wrong, and I definitely don't disagree with it necessarily. That's how it is. So gave them an A- on this class. So moving on, what would it? I guess it would be San Francisco, the Rams, Los Angeles.
Yeah, let's go with the Rams.
The Rams for me. Excuse me, I gave them a C. No first round pick makes it a little bit tough, but I do think Terrence Ferguson is a good scheme fit, could potentially be their number 1 tight end, because Tyler Higbee, man, has been so hurt for so long and just a little bit disappointing. So you have him there. Obviously, the fastest guy at the combine for the tight end position was Terrence Ferguson. Josiah Stewart, I know you're a little bit higher on him than me. More of a pass rush specialist. Jarquez Hunter will come in, even though they took
Blake Corum.
Corum last year. I'm like, they took the Michigan guy. They have Blake Corum and Kyron Williams.
Not much diversity between those 3 guys in terms of running style.
Seems very similar. Very similar. So Chris Paul, I liked in the 5th. I had him pretty high on my linebacker board too, so I thought that was good value in the 5th, but not having a first round pick hurts. Terrence Ferguson was a little bit high for me. I definitely did not have him in my top 50. He ended up at 95 for me. I think the scheme fit is good, but I think it was a little bit of an overdraft there for me. So gave this one a C.
Yeah, I gave this one a B-. They get the boost because they picked up an extra first rounder next year. If I'm to grade the haul alone, I'm lower on it. Terrence Ferguson was 114th on my big board. And he came in at 46 drafted. I think they obviously liked the pick. He was comped by Sean McVay to Travis Kelce after the draft. So high praise in that organization for this guy. I kind of went out on a limb. I think that they traded out and thought that they could get Carson Schlesinger at 46. I felt like if Carson Schlesinger had as much first round buzz as he did, same with Mason Taylor, that those were 2 players the Rams were eyeing and wanted to move out for. Neither of them were able to make it to 46. They took T. Ferg. I like the Josiah Stewart pick. Talked a little bit about how the Jarquez Hunter pick seems a little bit redundant. But Chris Paul Jr. at 172 was a steal. So if I'm to grade the haul, it's probably a C, but I give them a little bit of a boost because they did pick up a critical first round pick for them. I think that they could be a QB in the first round team next year. And now they have the opportunity to do what the Giants did and add an elite player and a quarterback. Especially because they're not planning on picking third overall in any capacity. So decent class for the Rams. B- for me. Lower on the haul, but nice on the trade. The 49ers, the penultimate team here for us. I gave the 49ers a C+. I feel like the 49ers have not been in their bag of late in some of these past drafts that they've had. I think that they left this class without an outside cornerback, and they left it without premium offensive line talent. That hurt a lot because I thought that that's exactly what they were going to do. I'm fine with the Mykel Williams pick. We talked about how we think that's a good fit. When you have a good fit, I can excuse a reach a little bit. Alfred Collins went a little higher than I thought he would. Nick Martin was a massive reach in my opinion. I gave him like an honorable mention shout out in our top 8 linebacker episode. And he went.
That's
75.
why they took him.
Yeah, right. I mean, they only listened to the first half of our episode, so they were like, "That's good enough for me." I really like Upton Stout at 100. I really like Upton Stout, but I needed them to get a outside corner. And then we got to talk about the pick at 113. This is what prevented this class from having a much lower grade. CJ West at 113 is an amazing pick. I think that's an awesome pick for San Francisco. Don't love the Jordan Watkins pick. We'll see if they can work their late round RB magic with Jordan James. Marquez Single, don't love what they did in the 7th round. Connor Colby's not your answer at offensive line. No. They needed this grade being low isn't really about the guys that they took. It's about the guys that they didn't take. I think they needed a corner really badly, an outside corner. Will Johnson was there at 43 for him. They didn't do it.
Yep.
And then no premium offensive lineman. That's going to be potentially a problem. This has the makings of a class that could have some good players, but still be one. We talked about it with Minnesota. We point to as the Niners had a chance here to refresh their roster and maybe didn't.
I gave it a C. This one was a little bit tough for me too. I like the floor of Mykel Williams as a run defender. I feel like this was a Robert Saleh draft. Mykel Williams, Alfred Collins, CJ West are 3 great front 7 guys there. Nick Martin, Upton Stout, a little bit undersized for the NFL, and I thought they were reaches. I do like Upton Stout as a player, but I still thought it was a little bit of a reach with his size, things like right there. I agree with you. They needed an outside corner so badly. I don't know how they passed up Will Johnson at 47. I don't know how, at 43. I don't know how they did that. I thought that if he was there at 11, it would have been like, I thought it was him and Kenneth Grant at 11. There were thoughts there. And, they didn't take him at 11 or 43. So I was a little bit shocked there. Upton Stout, great player, doesn't solve their cornerback issue. And then the first offensive lineman they took was in the 7th round, and it's Connor Colby. It's like, there's starting to be a little bit more issues on the San Francisco side. It was definitely a defensive heavy draft. I think that's why I say it's a Robert Saleh one, but I think they could have made it a little bit better of a defensive class if they would have done a little bit different things at different positions. So a little bit of a reach or a couple reaches in the 3rd round, even though Upton Stout's better than Nick Martin, in my opinion, it still would be classified as a reach. So, And then the last class, wrapping it up, the Seattle Seahawks. I gave this one a B. I spelled Seahawks wrong, so now I can't get it. I gave this one a B+. Sorry, not a B. I thought Gray Zabel made it. Yeah, I thought Gray Zabel made a ton of sense for them in the 1st round. Really like that pick. They needed an interior offensive line. I loved Nicky Mawari. We said that I thought they would take him in the 2nd round, but we weren't doing trades. They trade up to get Mawari. That fits Mike McDonald's defense. He has his Kyle Hamilton there now. Elijah Arroyo, I was high on him too, but I still thought 50 was a little bit higher than I would have been comfortable taking him. I'm not a fan of Jalen Milroe personally, unless they're going to use him as a Taysom Hill type guy. Like if they're going to scheme up touches for him, give him the ball, I am fine with it, but I don't love him as a true developmental quarterback. So don't really love that. I think Torrey Horton was a really good pick there, bigger bodied outside receiver who was really good in 2023, had some injuries in 2024, so kind of fell down. They also take Ricky White, so the 2 best Mountain West receivers. Jalen Royals is up there too, but man, Torrey Horton and Ricky White in 2023.
Jalen Royals is the best one.
You're right. Yeah, two of the top 3, I'll say there. Jalen Royals for sure was the best one. But Torrey Horton and Ricky White there give them a little bit of developmental upside type guys that could.
Nick Nash, by the way. Nick Nash.
They got him as an undrafted free agent?
No, but Nick Nash is a Mountain West receiver.
Okay, last year Nick Nash was better. You're right.
Yeah. Prospect-wise, I'll give it to you, though.
Yeah. Yeah, Nick Nash was better last year, but before that, he probably wasn't. But anyways.
I was just trying to figure out as many ways I could get in the way of that statement you made.
No, you're right. I spoke that without thinking it because I was like, hey, Torrey Horton and Ricky White. Ricky White was better in 2023. Same with
Shout
Torrey
out
Horton.
Mountain West, though. We're talking about them having this many good receivers, so that's good.
So, but I liked what they did at the top. Zabel and Imawari, Imawari at 35 for the trade up was great. Really like I said, Torrey Horton at 166, Ricky White at 238. He provides a little bit of return specialist also there too. I thought they needed a tight end in Arroyo. I still think it was high for them, but they went out and they got their guy. And I think he's a big, long receiver down the middle of the field that can give Sam Darnold some options there too. And okay, yeah, they lost DK Metcalf, but maybe Arroyo is that bigger bodied pass catcher. If Torrey Horton is not quite ready, year one and stuff. So
yeah,
give it a B+.
This was a B+ for me too. I think they left their first 2 picks potentially with the 2 guys they were deciding between at 18 overall. I think it's very possible they were like, do we go Zabel? Do we go Imawari at 18? They land both. Big props to them for that. I like the Arroyo pick. I think Mike McDonald getting his kind of like Lamar Jackson project. I don't really mind that. I don't mind it because he doesn't have to be the QB2. I was nervous about somebody taking Milroe and then having an injury to the starter and Milroe having to go out there. This is a very secure learning spot for Jalen Milroe. He'll be able to prove it. 5th round, Riley Mills, Torrey Horton. Love those picks. Damian Martinez in the 7th round, I think, is an awesome pick. They've been rumored to potentially move one of their 2 running backs. So Damian Martinez is a very solid option for them in the 7th. That was the steal of this class for me. And then, yeah, like you talked about, Ricky White, special teams ace. Very solid draft for Seattle. This roster had a lot of holes coming into this draft, and I think they checked a lot of those boxes. So solid draft for Seattle, them and Arizona, best in the divisions. And with that, that's our farewell to 2025, a very fun class carried by potentially 3 players. Without them, special thanks to Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, and Ashton Genty. Without them, this might not have been as fun of a process. But
it's always fun no matter what.
Yeah. Well,
no.
that's it for 2025. Been a ride. We're on to 2026. We'll talk about all the rookies, some dynasty stuff, how they're performing. We'll do a little stock watch as the season rolls on with how these rookies are performing. And there will probably be 1 to 5 Vikings players that are stock ups because that's how this works. If we gave that class a D+, they're all going to be Hall of Famers.
That's exactly how it works. So, but
yeah.
No, we'll probably have we haven't planned it out, but we'll probably do an early 2026 mock or something.
Yeah.
Obviously summer scouting will come a little bit down the road. But we'll do some dynasty fantasy talk just, to stick with 2025, but not be talking like it'll be dynasty. So if you guys are into that, and then a 2026 early mock draft, and yeah, we'll see what other cool content. If you guys have any ideas, you can always drop it down below on the YouTube channel. Anything you want to see in the off season before maybe we get to summer scouting or whatever. But yeah, this was a fun process. First year doing this, we started in February. So next year, once we get a summer scouting and then, maybe start positions a little early. So it's not so rushed. We had plans to have guest people come in and do mock drafts. We'll get on that earlier because, it was so tight. It was hard to find a time to do it with some of them. We had some prospect interviews, guys that had reached out. We won't say who, so you don't get mad at them for ditching us. But we had some people that had reached out, and then again, we just could not find a time with them. Imagine that they're actually training for the NFL. Like, what the heck are they doing? But so we have some cool content, especially planned for next year, and we're excited to get to some of that stuff.
Yeah, y'all stay tuned. And thank you guys, those of you guys who joined us in year 1. Look forward to having you guys around and more in year 2. If you're a Patriots fan, you're not following Pat's Drive. Why? Go do that. But for Jace Campbell, I'm Max Showstack. Thank you guys so much for listening and sticking with us through the 2025 NFL Draft. We will see you guys next time for an episode that we have yet to decide what it is, but it will be a banger. That's a promise. Thank you guys so much again for listening. Peace.